Welcome back to the Deep Dive, ready to dive into some more fascinating material. Today we're looking at AI.
Definitely. And this time we've got some pretty cutting-edge stuff to dig into.
Yeah, we've got reports on this new Chinese AI model DeepSeek Plus, a whole bunch on the global chip shortage, and what that means for AI development.
That's right, there's a lot to cover. But these sources, I think they do a good job of giving us both the technical details and the bigger picture, like how this stuff could actually impact, the economy or even, lead to some tricky ethical questions.
Okay, so should we just jump right in? Let's start with DeepSeek. It's being hailed as a potential game changer.
And with good reason, DeepSeek V3, it's got this really unique architecture. It's what they call a mixture of experts model.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't AI engineers, what does it actually mean?
So think of it this way. Instead of using your entire brain for every single task, you have specialized areas that only kick in when needed. That's DeepSeek.
Ah, so it's like having a whole team of AI specialists all working together on one problem.
Exactly. And because of that, it's incredibly efficient, both in how it learns and how it processes information. We could be talking about much larger models and embeddings, which means it can handle even more complex tasks than what we're seeing now.
Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, they're making it open source. It's a pretty bold move in such a competitive field.
It is. They've released the model weights and even detailed technical reports, so it'll be interesting to see if this encourages other companies like OpenAI or Llama to follow suit. It could really shake things up in the AI world.
Definitely. Now, speaking of the AI landscape, where does DeepSeek fit in with all the other models out there? I know there's this whole distinction between base models and instruction-tuned models.
Yeah, you're right. Those are the two main categories. Base models are like the foundation. They're trained on massive amounts of data. Like you're basically feeding them the entire internet. And their main job is to just predict text.
So they're kind of like raw potential, just waiting to be molded into something more specific.
Exactly. And that's where the instruction-tuned models come in. They take that base and they refine it, train it to respond to specific prompts and instructions. So like teaching it to write different kinds of text, from emails to code, you name it.
So it's like taking a general purpose tool and making it specialized for a particular job.
Precisely. And the methods for training these models, they're getting pretty sophisticated. We're seeing techniques like preference fine-tuning, which includes RLHF or reinforcement learning from human feedback.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Isn't that how ChatGPT got so good with the whole human feedback loop thing?
That's it. Exactly. It's all about aligning the model with human preferences. So you have humans rating different responses, and the AI learns to give priority to those that are rated highly.
So it's basically learning to communicate more like a human would.
In a sense, yeah. And then there's reinforcement learning with language models. That one focuses on training models to achieve specific goals, especially in fields with clear right or wrong answers, like math or coding.
It's like giving the model a problem to solve and letting it learn from its mistakes.
Exactly. And then you have distillation, which is a method for training smaller models by using the output of a much more powerful model as training data.
So even AI models have mentors.
You could say that. But even with all these advancements, it's still humans driving this innovation, right?
Right. I mean, we're the ones providing the data, the feedback, and making sure these models are actually aligned with our goals.
You're absolutely right. And that human element is still crucial. Though with techniques like reinforcement learning, with language models, we're starting to see reasoning behaviors emerge without those explicit human preferences. So the role of humans is definitely shifting as AI becomes more sophisticated.
And speaking of sophisticated, to create these advanced models, you need some pretty powerful hardware, right? I keep hearing about these massive GPU clusters.
Oh, yeah. Those are the backbone of AI development, basically giant collections of these powerful graphics processing units or GPUs. Yeah. And they're what's used to train and run these incredibly complex AI models.
And we're not talking about just a handful of GPUs either.
Yeah.
I've seen reports of companies building clusters with tens of thousands of them.
The scale is mind-boggling. Meta, for example, they have a cluster with 16,000 GPUs. And Elon Musk, he's supposedly building one with over 200,000.
That's insane. But I imagine that kind of scale comes with a hefty price tag.
Oh, definitely. The demand for GPUs is through the roof, and the cost is astronomical. We're talking billions of dollars being poured into building and maintaining these clusters.
It sounds like we're in the midst of an AI arms race almost.
Yeah.
With hardware and infrastructure as the weapons.
You could say that. And right now, NVIDIA is the undisputed king of the GPU market.
Yeah, it seems like they have a near monopoly on the market.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for their competitors, like AMD and Intel? Can they even catch up?
Well, it's not just about building more powerful GPUs. NVIDIA also has this really sophisticated software ecosystem that's very tightly integrated with their hardware. So they've got a significant advantage when it comes to performance and ease of use. Their competitors need to catch up on both fronts, powerful hardware and equally strong software.
So it's a two-pronged battle. And all this ties into the geopolitical landscape too, right? Like with the U.S. restricting the export of advanced chips to China.
Exactly. The U.S. has imposed these export controls on those chips specifically to maintain a technological gap in AI capabilities. There are concerns about China using this advanced AI for military or economic advantage, so these controls are a way to try and mitigate those risks.
But I've also heard that these restrictions could backfire, potentially pushing China to become more self-sufficient in other areas, like trailing-edge chip manufacturing.
It's a possibility for sure. It's a complex situation with a lot of potential ripple effects across the entire tech world. And then you have the whole debate about open sourcing AI models. What happens if a dominant AI model comes from either the US or China? That's a big question. There are concerns about potential bias and how that might influence cultural norms if one country ends up dominating AI development. Open sourcing could either help or hurt those issues, depending on how it's done.
So it's a delicate balancing act, for sure. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to how we use this technology and what values we embed in it, right?
Absolutely. And that brings us to another crucial question. What does the future hold for jobs? As AI continues to evolve, especially in fields like programming and software engineering?
That's the million-dollar question in everyone's mind. Are robots coming to take our jobs?
I think it's more nuanced than that. While AI will definitely automate certain tasks, it's also going to create new opportunities. The nature of work will change. For example, in programming, we might see a shift away from traditional coding and more towards things like code review debugging, and something called prompt engineering, which is where humans guide the AI's decision-making process.
So it's not so much about jobs disappearing, but rather the types of skills that are going to be in demand will change.
Exactly. Humans and AI working together, that's likely going to be the dominant model for the foreseeable future.
Okay, that's somewhat reassuring. But what about the role of the U.S. government in all this? It seems like they're taking a much more active role in supporting AI development.
You're right, they are. One example is this initiative called Stargate. It's a public-private partnership designed to boost AI infrastructure in the U.S. It involves companies like Oracle and focuses on things like building massive data centers and securing enough power supply to run them.
So the government sees AI as strategically important, and they're willing to invest heavily in it. But with all this talk about progress and innovation, it makes you wonder, is the current pace of AI development actually sustainable in the long term? I mean, the advancements are happening so quickly. The costs are astronomical. And the environmental impact is a real concern.
Those are all valid points, and definitely things we need to consider as we dive deeper into these sources. But for now, I think it's time for a quick break. We'll come back and address those questions when we return.
Sounds good. We'll be right back after a short break.
See you in a few.
All right, so we're back. And before the break, we were talking about the sustainability.
A lot of different angles to consider.
I mean, just thinking about those massive GPU clusters.
Yeah.
The energy consumption alone has got to be enormous.
It is. Some estimates even compare it to the energy consumption of small cities.
So how do we reconcile that with, the whole push for sustainability and addressing climate change?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Balancing progress with its potential downsides. We can't just ignore the environmental costs. We need to find ways to develop AI more responsibly and sustainably.
For sure. And it's not just about the environment, right? There's also the whole issue of AI alignment, making sure these systems are actually developed with human values in mind.
Alignment is crucial. It's all about making sure that systems are aligned with our goals and values and that they're used for good and not for harm.
Right, so preventing bias, ensuring fairness, and safeguarding against potential misuse.
Exactly. It's about making sure AI is a force for good in the world. And that takes careful consideration of the ethical implications.
Well, we've already seen how things go wrong, even with the best intentions.
Yeah.
Like with those social media algorithms.
Right. Even when the goals are good, there can be unintended consequences. That's why it's so important to have open discussions and transparency around AI development and deployment.
Speaking of transparency, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the whole open sourcing debate. What are the potential benefits and risks of making these powerful AI models freely available?
There are strong arguments on both sides. Proponents of open sourcing say it can really accelerate innovation and collaboration. By making these technologies more accessible, we can democratize AI development and prevent it from being controlled by just a few powerful companies.
That makes sense. More people working on it could lead to more breakthroughs and hopefully a wider distribution of the benefits.
Exactly, but then you have the concerns about potential misuse. What if these models end up in the wrong hands? Could they be used to create deepfakes or spread misinformation or even develop autonomous weapons?
That's a scary thought. It feels like we're dealing with something incredibly powerful that we don't fully understand yet.
And that's exactly why responsible open sourcing is so crucial. It's not just about making the technology available, it's about putting safeguards in place and developing ethical guidelines and fostering a culture of responsible AI development.
It seems like finding that balance between encouraging innovation and preventing harm is key.
It is, and that's where governments and international organizations come in. We need clear regulations and oversight to make sure AI is developed and used safely and ethically.
It sounds like this is going to require a global effort. AI is a global phenomenon after all, and its impact is going to be felt worldwide.
Definitely. We need international cooperation to set standards and share best practices and really grapple with the ethical and societal implications of this technology.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the economic side of things.
Yeah.
We're seeing billions of dollars poured into AI research and development.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a sustainable business model?
That's the question, isn't it? Right now, a lot of companies are making huge bets on AI, investing heavily with the hope of, big financial returns down the line.
It reminds me of the dot-com boom a little bit, where everyone was rushing to invest in internet startups.
There are definitely some parallels, but with AI, the stakes are even higher and the potential for disruption is much greater. Whole industries could be transformed. New markets could emerge.
And as we talked about earlier, governments are getting involved too. They recognize the strategic importance of AI, and they want to make sure their countries stay ahead of the curve.
It's become a matter of national security and economic competitiveness. Whoever leads in AI development stands to gain a significant advantage on the world stage.
Which brings us back to those export controls.
Yeah.
The U.S. trying to limit China's access to advanced chips and technology. But as we discussed, those restrictions could have unintended consequences.
It's a really complex situation. On the one hand, those concerns about China's potential use of AI are valid, but stifling collaboration and innovation could end up hurting everyone. It's a tough balancing act.
Okay, so looking ahead, what do you see as the future of work in this AI-powered world? Are the robots really going to take all our jobs?
I don't think it's that simple. I think it's more about jobs evolving. AI will automate certain tasks for sure, but that means we'll need to adapt and learn new skills. And in some cases, entirely new jobs will be created. Like, think about prompt engineering. That didn't even exist a few years ago. Now it's a rapidly growing field.
So instead of fearing AI, we should be thinking about how to work with it and use it to create new opportunities.
Exactly. It's about humans and AI working together. Each playing to their strengths. AI can handle those repetitive, data-driven tasks. And humans can focus on the creative problem-solving and strategic thinking.
It's a partnership, not a competition.
That's right. And that partnership has the potential to lead to some really incredible advancements. Like in healthcare, for example, AI can help doctors diagnose diseases more accurately and personalize treatments.
It's mind-blowing to think about all the possibilities, from personalized medicine to self-driving cars to sustainable energy solutions.
The potential is huge, but it's important to remember that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to guide its development and make sure it's used responsibly.
That's a good point. We need to approach AI with a sense of both wonder and caution, recognizing its potential to both benefit and harm humanity.
Absolutely. And that's something we'll keep exploring as we continue to delve deeper into the world of AI.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into AI. And I think it's interesting how the whole narrative around AI has changed over the years.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, in the past, it was all doom and gloom, right? Like, AI was going to become this all-powerful force and turn against us.
Yeah, the whole Terminator scenario, machines rising up to enslave humanity.
Exactly. But now the conversation is a little more nuanced. I think we're starting to realize that the real danger isn't some evil AI bent on destroying us, but rather our own inability to fully grasp the potential consequences of what we're creating.
So less about malicious robots and more about unintended consequences.
Exactly. It's kind of like, giving a toddler a loaded gun. The danger isn't that they're intentionally trying to hurt anyone. It's that they just don't understand the power of what they're holding.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we prevent AI from becoming that metaphorical loaded gun?
Well, education's a big part of it. We need to understand both the capabilities and limitations of AI and really grapple with the ethical considerations. I think AI literacy is going to be crucial moving forward.
So we need to be informed citizens in this new AI-powered world.
Exactly. And of course, regulation is going to play a huge role too. We need clear guidelines to prevent misuse while also making sure we don't stifle innovation.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, right? Progress without recklessness.
Precisely, and that's where governments and international organizations have a big responsibility. We need global cooperation to set standards and make sure AI is developed responsibly.
Okay, so let's bring it down to a more personal level for a second. What advice would you give to our listeners out there who are trying to navigate this new AI-powered landscape?
Well, first of all, be careful about the information you're consuming online. AI is being used more and more to generate and manipulate content. So it's more important than ever to think critically and be skeptical of sources that seem questionable.
So don't believe everything you read, especially if it seems too good to be true.
Right. And second, embrace lifelong learning. This field is changing so rapidly, the skills that are in demand today might be obsolete tomorrow. So you got to be proactive and stay ahead of the curve.
It's like constantly upgrading your operating system to keep up with the latest software.
That's a great way to put it. And lastly, don't be afraid to actually try out some of the AI tools that are out there. There are so many amazing apps and services available, everything from language translation to image editing to personal finance management. By using these tools, you can not only boost your productivity, but also get a better understanding of how AI actually works.
So basically, embrace the opportunities while staying aware of the potential risks.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool, and it's up to us to use it wisely.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to touch on some of the common misconceptions about AI. What do you think is the biggest one that people have?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people still see AI as this single all-powerful entity, like it's one giant brain controlling everything. But in reality, it's a collection of different technologies and techniques, each with its own strengths and limitations.
So it's not one big scary monster, but rather a network of specialized systems working together.
Right. And that diversity is important to remember. AI is not a magic solution. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
And it's up to us to make sure it's used for the right reasons.
Exactly. We need to approach it with both a sense of excitement and caution, recognizing both its potential for progress and the potential risks that come with it.
Well said. This has been a truly fascinating deep dive into the world of AI. Thanks for sharing your insights with us.
It's been my pleasure. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this exploration of AI. Remember, this is just the beginning. As this technology continues to evolve, we're going to face new challenges and new opportunities. But by staying informed, engaged, and adaptable, we can shape AI to create a better future for everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.